Buddy, this is your old pal, Uncle Hondo. Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I am your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. It's good to have you. Let's get right into it. We're going to be talking draft. We're going to get into so much information today, but I want to start with an email from C, the initial C, last name Butler. It says, Hondo, I love your podcast scouting reports with various SI writers on the new players the Raiders have signed in free agency. Can we get someone to come on and talk about quarterback Eric Stokes from Green Bay? Absolutely, we can. And because I have no idea if the C is a male or female, I could say NIST or Miss Butler. Yes, I can. And we're going to bring on our absolutely terrific beat writer on SI who covers the Green Bay Packers, Bill Huber. He is a very gifted writer. In fact, to be very frank, he may be one of our best writers on all the SI network. I think he's really good. And one of the things that I like about Bill's writing is I've said this to you many times. I like it when I can watch something with somebody sitting next to me and we have different angles. Bill is a very good writer. And one of the things I like about him is he doesn't bloviate. He gets to it, he writes it. He's very, very good. I would encourage you, if you ever want great Green Bay coverage, Bill is a must go to guy. He's really good at it. Bill, thanks for joining. First time on the podcast, but you are one of my favorite writers on our network, and I appreciate you joining us.
Happy to do it, Hondo. How you been?
I'm doing good, my friend. It's good to talk to you. I want to get your thoughts on Eric Stokes because I think, first of all, you wrote a great piece on him and we aggregated it and wrote off of what you said. But you had some really good angles on him. And I'd love your thoughts on this young man.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, Hondo. Like, he was a first-round pick in 2021. Like, he's 6'1". I mean, he had 4.2, whatever, speed, low fourth, whatever it was. I mean, the guy's like everything you'd ever want in a corner. He comes in his rookie year in 2021, and Jair Alexander misses most of the year. So he's thrust into this humongous role, and he's great. I mean, he's legitimately a great player. The Packers do not go 13-3, or so 13-4. They're number one seed. They don't do it without him. I just looked up the numbers to remind myself before I hopped on here. Among all cornerbacks in 2021, not just rookie corners, all of them, he ranked 5th in the NFL in completion percentage allowed, according to Pro Football Focus. Him and Patrick Surtain were number 1 and 2 among all rookie cornerbacks in, you name it, passer rating, completion percentage, yards per attempt. Him and Surtain were 1 and 2. It looks like they got this terrific star. The first half of 2022, he's terrible. He doesn't break up a single pass. He allows like an 84% of completion rate. And then he suffers a foot injury, one of those Liz Frank ones. As you know, Hondo, that's like a death knell for a lot of players. So he misses the rest of 2022 with surgery. Comes back in 2023. The foot's still a problem during training camp, and then just a couple of hamstring injuries. The guy has more stints on injured list than he plays games. A total disaster of a season. 2024, he comes back healthy. He went to a specialist at the University of Wisconsin, got the hamstring stuff behind him. He played every game. He was pretty good. But Hondo, he has not broken up a pass since his rookie year. He didn't play much. He played half the year of 2022, didn't play much of 23, and played all of 2024. Not a single broken up pass. If you take the number of starts during that span, the next fewest breakups for a cornerback were 8. I mean, it's unbelievable how the guy has fallen off of a cliff. That being said, he didn't give up a whole lot last year, Hondo. I mean, the completion percentage was relatively low, including down the stretch. The yards per attempt were down. Might have given up one touchdown, maybe 2. So he played pretty well. He just didn't make any plays. Like, not exactly. I mean, he literally made no plays. Mm-hmm. So I think if you're the Raiders, you're hoping that, look, the guy was a first-round pick a few years ago. He's still tall. He still runs. He's got a lot of experience. And so now that maybe he's a year beyond all that injury stuff, maybe you get something out of him. Long answer, but high upside, low risk, I would say.
Bill, you're there every day. You know the guy. I've also heard, though, he's a very good guy, that he's somebody that's going to come in and not poison your locker room. That's really important to the Raiders. They value that culture. Would you talk about him from a personal side, please?
Yeah, I mean, we all liked him. You know, you've been in enough locker rooms where guys when it's media time, whoa, we're not going to go into the locker room. As soon as the locker room closes, they all go into the locker room, right, to go hang out. Stokes is always there. No matter how poorly he played in 2022, he was there. No matter all the bad luck in 2023, he was there. When he lost his job in 2024, he was there. So as media guys, we appreciate it. And if I always think if you're good to us, you're probably good to everybody. You're probably good to your teammates. You're probably good to the guy who cleans your locker out. You're probably good to the lunchroom staff. I mean, he's a really good guy, and he's certainly someone that you pull for to have success.
That's pretty cool. All right, I want to quickly. One of the things that intrigues me is I want to talk about Josh Jacobs with you for just a second. And I apologize. I'm not trying to spring anything on you. I know I didn't tell you we were going to talk about him and Nate Hobbs, so I apologize about that. I love Josh. Great guy. He struggled with the Raiders. He was injured a lot and had one super good year with the Raiders, and it was a contract year. His last year with the Raiders, injured a lot. And so the Raiders thought they had a number with him that he would sign, and clearly he didn't, and he goes to the Packers. Now, I was told by some people around the league that the Packers thought, and some others do as well, that the Raiders' strength and conditioning does not do a good job of preparing their players, and they thought Josh Jacobs in a better strength and conditioning program would produce well. He clearly did. What a great year for him in Green Bay, and he's a great guy. I'm happy for him. Same thing with Nate Hobbs, the best nickel corner in the NFL, no doubt when healthy, but injured all the time. And so again, that same Packer, hey, we think strength and conditioning with the Raiders is a big deal. We'll do with him what we did with Josh. You're going to love Nate. You're not going to like him. You're going to love him. Tremendous guy, great locker room presence. And if they can keep him healthy, he's a game changer. Talk about the way the Packers are so good year after year by analyzing weaknesses in other franchises. Can you talk about that, Bill?
Yeah, first of all, you're right about Nate. We talked to him Friday. I mean, guy, you can see why teams will want him beyond the player part of it. But for teams who care about locker room culture and guys who care, I mean, you can certainly see why they brought him in. Yeah, the injury stuff's interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Like they swapped out their strength and conditioning staff for last season. Like most teams, they're up and down. They had some years where they were pretty healthy, some years where they weren't. I mean, they were pretty darn healthy last year. We talked about Stokes a minute ago, where he was injured all of 2023. He was healthy all of 2024. Christian Watson, now he realized he had a torn ACL. I don't think there's any spring step that's going to fix that, but he had a whole bunch of hamstring injuries in 2023. Was healthy in 2024 until the knee, right? So I think, I mean, I don't want to say you found something there, but it seems like maybe the Packers have the guy came from the 49ers and was pretty well regarded there too. So we'll see. I mean, injuries, as you know, they just seem to go up and down, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it for a lot of reasons. I do think Green Bay's had some success in free agency by, I don't want to say trash and treasure, because to say Josh Jacobs is trash would be obviously a gross overstatement, but they have done pretty well of finding guys that maybe not quite up to what the other team was thinking, and having the belief that, between their strength staff, their coaching, their scheme, the chemistry and all that they can get the best out of guys. So it certainly worked out with Jacobs. I mean, he was phenomenal. I mean, he's an all-pro running back, if not for Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley having the kind of seasons that they had. So, he changed everything here, Hondo. I mean, this has been a pass-first offense forever. Jacobs comes in, and they run the ball like 50% of the time. It's like the third or fourth highest run rate in the league. And what the Packers have to do this year, they have to build off of that. Like the play-action passing game wasn't worth a crap for a lot of the year. And if you have a great running game, there's no reason for that. So they need to build off of what Jacobs did last season to kind of maximize what he gave them.
All of my Packer friends, and having been raised in Michigan and all of that, I've got so many upper Midwest friends who love the Packers. I've steered every one of them to you. They love you, and man, they love themselves some Josh Jacobs. So it's good for you. Bill, do me a favor, because I was being completely sincere in my comments about your writing, and I think you do a great job. Can you please tell everybody where they can find you on X?
At Bill Huber NFL.
Awesome. Check Bill out. Great follow. Great guy. And remember, you can always check out your Packers news when you want to go quickly to si.com/NFL/Packers. Thanks for joining us today, Bill. I appreciate you, brother.
Happy to do it, Sad Eric, for me.
All right, I will. Have a good one, buddy.
You
There
too.
you go. That's the great Bill Huber. Excellent job right there by him joining us. One of the good guys, one of the really good guys that does it. All right, let's keep going. Hondo, why do you prop up Colton Miller like he's some great player? He's a bum. Dump him and put Thayer Mumford on the left, and let's go. Colton is trash from Don L. Don, I'm going to address this because I take a lot of criticism when I say a player is a good guy. And I do that intentionally because I don't care about the criticism. It doesn't matter. But because of moronic statements like this, first of all, you know nothing about football. And I can assure you, you know nothing at all about Colton Miller. Let me address this. Colton Miller struggled when he came back after missing so much time in 23, injured, to get back into playing shape. But once he did, it was about the fourth or fifth game. He played like an all pro the rest of the year and played phenomenally well. He's a player that I expect to get a redone deal. He's a player that multiple teams last year were interested in trading for. And if he were to hit the free agent market, when I saw that I was going to be answering your email, I reached out to several people around the league, and I believe as many as 20 teams would line up to bid for him to be their starting left tackle. So when you say things like, why do I prop him up as if he's a great player? Because he is. Do I think he's the best left tackle in the National Football League? No. Do I think he's one of the best? Absolutely. And then to call him a bum, either you have no knowledge of the English language and what the word bum means, or you're a moron, or an imbecile would fit too. Go look those words up. Because there's nothing bummish about him. He's a great provider. He cares incredibly about his tremendous family. And he is truly, in all of my decades of covering sports, one of my favorite human beings. One of my favorites. I think he is an absolutely great guy. So when you call him a bum personally, and then call him trash, my father used to say, better to be thought a fool than open your mouth and prove it. You proved it. So what I would say to you, Don, is this. If you don't like Colton Miller as a player, and you say, you know what, I wish the Raiders would move on from Colton Miller. I'm gonna show you an email here in a minute. Or if you said, hey, I'm not a fan of Colton, injuries. Okay. I can live with all of those. I may disagree, but I could live with all of those. But when you start calling players bums and trash, I'm sorry. It's ignorant. And this is exactly, I get so many emails like this about players. And I'm going to tell you when a player is a good guy. You want to argue about Colton's playing? Okay, fine. That's germane. After he was healthy, I think he was terrific. But you want to talk about, that's fine. I have no problem. That's football. But you want to make it personal and you just look stupid. Then the next person I meet who actually knows Colton, and I know him well, very well, that doesn't like Colton Miller is going to be the first. Colton is a terrific human being that plays the game of football at a very high level. You're not going to be able to impede his character or talent to me. Just going to leave it there. Next one comes from Tracy. Tracy Y. Tracy Y says, Hondo, I, like you, do respect Colton Miller, but I also know he's played a lot of years in the NFL. I love the idea of the Raiders picking Will Campbell, putting him on the right with DJ Glaze as his backup and Thayer Mumford as the backup on the left. So in a couple of years, even with a redone deal, they could move Will Campbell to left. They already have the left tackle in place with experience to replace Colton when he retires. What do you think of that scenario? Thanks, Tracy. Fine. You pick the best player available. So if you're sitting there at 6 and you can't trade, and the best player available is Will Campbell, you take him. You take him. I have no problem with that. The next one comes to us from Jordan Y in Roseville, California, and he ends his email with home of the great Colton Miller. Hey Hondo, you seem to be up at all hours of the night and early morning. Is this for work or do you naturally just not sleep very much? Get some rest so you can be at your best for Raider Nation. First of all, I'm glad you're concerned. I apologize about my voice. I've been doing a ton of interviews. So I'm fine. I'm healthy. I sleep anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a night, usually, sometimes less. But that's just how I'm wired. I do work a ton, but that 4 to 6 is usually how I roll. But yes, I love to get up first thing early in the morning, do my devotions, and then get right to work. I like starting my day before my family's up. And that way, when Dexter Ernest Wayne Carpenter wakes up, our youngest, our 2-year-old baby, I can give him some daddy time and love on him a little bit and not be rushing to get right back to work. But yeah, that's kind of me by nature. Next, hello, Uncle Hondo. After watching your podcast on Tuesday, you mentioned the Raiders possibly trading with the Cowboys and potentially ending up with Ashton Jeanty. While this option is extremely enticing, do you think the Bears might snag him at 10? Curious if you have heard who else is interested in top running backs. Thanks so much for the work you do, Colby Vaughn. Yeah, I've heard that there may be interest in the Bears, and I think there would be, but I think there are a couple other players that would be on the board at 10 that they have a more um, value and need. And they've proven to be a team that values need more than value. I know that sounds silly, but places more prominence on need than BPA, best player available. So there you go. We know that the word is out around the NFL that the Raiders are, excuse me, the Cowboys are in play for a quarterback. And so if they're in play and there are a lot of people that think that they really like Shador and they really like Jackson Dart. I could see the Cowboys absolutely potentially moving up to 6 if Shador and Cam are gone and Jackson's the only one and they think there could be other teams, or any number of scenarios. So I know they also really like Jalen Walker. So there's other scenarios there too, but that's a good question, and I appreciate that. And that was from Colby Vaughn. Okay, the next comes to us from Derek B. in Boise, Idaho. Hondo, I'm a big Boise State fan. I have enjoyed watching Gene T for the last several years. I would agree with you that he is generational talent. My question is, do you have any concern over the strength of competition that he faced in the Mountain West? Concern? Um, yes, but you've seen other players who perform at a very high level in the Mountain West transition that to the NFL. So is it a concern? Sure. I think Omarion Hampton played better competition. Absolutely, Omarion did. But still, Gene T does some things that you can't teach. And even though I think him and O'Marion are 1A and 1B, if I'm a Raider, I don't care which one they come out of the draft with, as long I would like them both if I were a Raider. I think Gene T, that is a concern, but I think there are other concerns for O'Marion. And so, yeah, I think he is. Now, here's another question that someone said to me that I thought was fascinating. This comes to us from Zachary S. Zachary S says, Hondo, I heard you say that you think Gene T is a generational talent, but you don't have a dude rating on him. Can you explain that? I can. A dude is a word in the NFL for a can't miss prospect. That means there are no concerns. No concerns. And there are a couple of concerns with Gene T. I've talked to you about arm length and how that relates to fumbling, number one. And that's a big one. But number two, um, level of competition. There are a couple of things which I think he's going to overcome. And if he does, he has generational talent. Now, he has to become a generational talent, but I think he has those things. But he's not a dude. NFL people don't consider him a dude. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of great players that they don't think are can be great. But a dude is no question marks. That guy's this. Joe Alt was that guy. Talise Fowaga was that guy. Brock Bowers. Those are the only three last year. Dudes. And all three in their rookie years showed dude. Showed dude. But you don't judge a guy till after the third year. Thank you. The next one. Hondo, I appreciate your reporting and stories. Awesome and inspiring. My question is, what are we going to do with Big Mike? Michael Mayer. I'd love to see him with Geno and could be valuable in the run game with a rookie running back. Thanks, Reed Boykin from South Carolina. I agree. There was a report that the Raiders would trade him. There was a report that teams are interested. But as I shared with you before, it wasn't like the Raiders have given up on him. It wasn't like he's some cantankerous person. Get me out of here. They're not going to give him away. He's too valuable. I would really like to see him with Geno and all. I like Mike. I like him as a player. I like him as a guy. I understand why the Raiders could move him for sure. I think at this point he is a luxury and not a necessity. And I think any player in your roster who is a luxury and not a necessity needs to be available for trade. So that's a good one there. Next one. Hey, Hondo. Brandon here from Murray, Utah. Moved here from the Bay Area. Love what you do and how you go about your business. Very professional, down to earth, always keeping it real. So thank you for that. My question, with the Raiders having many needs going into the draft that we could target at 6 or with a slight trade back, do you think that Gene T has just as good of a chance at getting drafted by us as players like Mason Graham, T Mac, Will Johnson, Will Campbell, and others in the same range? And there are other factors or facets to him that could make him more appealing candidate for our team that don't concern on the field play as compared to other prospects at their spot. So let me go into this a little bit. You have to look at several things when you are looking at a draft. Now, I want you to know what I'm about to tell you is very deep, very good, and it did not come from me. I was taught this by an NFL general manager who's a very, very dear friend of mine. In fact, going to have dinner. Shannon and I are going to have dinner with him and his wife tomorrow night. But he taught me this years ago that when you're looking at the NFL draft, You not only have to look at prospects and team needs, you have to look at team philosophy of drafting. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about the Bears. The Bears have a track record that they will draft excuse me, for need over best player available. That's why they took Mitchell Trubisky. They had a need. Mitchell was there as a quarterback. There are a lot of better players available. We saw how that worked out for him. And so, because of that, you may look at a team that has a glaring need at left tackle, and they're sitting there with three dudes on the table and a left tackle who's a really good player with a chance to be great, and they take the left tackle. They'll roll the dice picking early in the draft where you can't miss. You can't miss. And so that's also how you scout the draft. Now, I think there's a potential for 1 to 3 more guys to earn dude status here. I know there's a lot of teams having some private meetings with these guys, talking to them. So I reserve the right to give you a few more dudes if that arrives. I think, and I have a question on that next, and I'll address it then. But there are some guys that absolutely have that role. But that's why when you're looking at how's a guy fall here, how does a guy fall there? How do you look at how the board progresses? And I think that's really important if you're going to analyze and look at drafts, is not just who fits a need, what's the philosophy? And I think that's very, very important. Okay. Now, for example, there are some teams that'll trade draft picks. They don't want rookies, they want veterans. Those are big deals too. So, those are all things to keep in mind. And they're all things that you really want to evaluate. They're all things that you want to process in. The next one comes from us from Scott B. Scott B lives in Fresno, California. Scott B says, Hondo, I have a very interesting question for you. I know that you've been talking for a long time that Abdul Carter is the only dude so far in this draft. On today's podcast, you mentioned there could be some others that earn it. Would you mind sharing some of those names with us? That's from Scott B. Scott. So, um, Mason Graham is a name that's certainly in that discussion. Uh, I would say he probably has the best chance of earning dude status before the draft. And I'll tell you in a minute how I do that. Um, I think Will Campbell is going to be a really good player. I think he's going to be really, really good. Really good. Uh, I think he has a chance at being great if you really want to know the truth. But you can't say he's an absolute sure thing because there are some concerns about arm length at tackle. If you're really concerned about it, you put him at guard. But he has that tackle mentality and everything but the long arms. So I don't think Will get to dude. I think he could, but I don't think he will. Will Johnson, the corner, there are some concerns with him with health wise, staying healthy. So I don't see him getting to dude status because a dude is somebody that just can't miss. And when you have concerns about health status, so could he? Yes. Will he? I highly doubt it. So those are, 3 guys right there. I think Travis Hunter, there are some teams that absolutely think he is a dude, but it's not the consensus. Um, they're just not the consensus. I think he is a good player that can be great. I think he is a good player who could be a dude when his career's over. I'll never forget years ago. Nick Saban talked about every kid coming out of high school wants to be a 5-star when they should be thinking, when I leave college, I want to be a 5-star. And so not giving a kid the title of dude is not a slam at all. It's saying this is a great player who has some question marks. Travis has some question marks. Mason Graham has a question mark. Minimal, in my opinion. Will Johnson has a question mark. Minimal, in my opinion. Will Johnson has some question marks. But doesn't mean any of them that we think are not going to be really good players with potential to be great. Now, the way I do it, dude, is this, is I will talk to several NFL people, multiple, significant double digits, meaning not 10, and say, any dudes in this draft? And the way that I do it is 95% have to say a guy is a dude for me to tell you that this is a universally respected dude. I can tell you the only guy who is on every list 100% is Abdul Carter. Mason Graham is at 85%. So he's still about 10 percentage points away on my thing. But 85% of the people I say call him a dude. Of all the rest who I've shared with you, Will Johnson, Will Campbell, Travis Hunter, um, I can tell you Cam Ward is on that list too, by the way. None of them are over 50. Everyone thinks that they're really good players who can be great, but none of them is over 50, where 50% of the people are calling them a dude. I hope that helps and gives you some explanation. The next one is from Mike W. in Texas. Now, I got to tell you, my staff informed me this earlier this week. I don't remember what day it was, so forgive me. I was doing some question and answers, and I had 2 mics in a row, and I missed this mic. So I apologize, Mike. I don't know how I missed it, but I did. And he says, "Hey, Hondo, hope all is good. Thanks for your pod. I'm a daily listener. What do real NFL people think of Geno? Twitter film people," and he uses film nerds, who are not Raider fans, love his arm. They blame the O-line for dip in production in recent years. And Twitter Raider Nation is fairly hyped. He is legit. What does your NFL circle of people think of Geno Smith? First of all, they love it. They love it. I cannot tell you the response. I mentioned Shannon and I are going to dinner tomorrow with a GM, and he sent me this really long text before the Raiders signed Geno. You may remember that morning I did a pod that Geno had become a real possibility, and I put the podcast up. And as soon as it went up, he sent me a text. He says, "Very timely pod. I heard they're closing the deal," which I told him I had heard that as well. And he talked about a great, great get. Around the NFL, there are a lot of people that think the Raiders are significantly better today because of Geno, for a couple of reasons. Number one, because they love the way Geno plays with Pete Carroll. They just love the way Geno plays with Pete Carroll. Many people believe, and I agree with them, many people believe that Geno and Pete have such a great relationship that Pete's able to coach him really hard, and he takes it because he absolutely knows Pete loves him. But that's a great question on your half. So the NFL people love it, think it was a great hire. And by the way, do me a favor, Mike. You're in Texas. Go get you some Papacitos, man. It is the best restaurant in America. Now, I have a favorite restaurant in the world. That's the Carnivore in Nairobi, Kenya. Look it up. It's the best restaurant in the world. It's called the Carnivore in Nairobi, Kenya. great place to eat. Anytime I'm in Kenya, I'm always going to go to the Carnivore. But my favorite place in the United States, to me, it's the best Mexican food in the world. And let me tell you, all of my listeners from Mexico and who are of Mexican descent tell me, Hondo, you've got to go to Mexico. Okay. I've been to Mexico. I'll be in Mexico in a couple of weeks after the owners' meetings. I really enjoy their food. Lapasitos in Texas, get the grilled quail, the quesadilla, and the I'm trying to say this properly. Tortillas. They're thick, man. They're like bread. They're so good. So good. Get it? You'll thank me later. Last one. And I thought this was really good. This comes from Stan. Stan uh, W. Stan W says, oh, this one's kind of funny. This one's really funny. Hondo, I have really enjoyed watching the Raiders this offseason. And I do think that they're a better team than the one that ended the year. But to me, outside of Pete Carroll, which I think was the biggest addition, do you think Geno was the biggest addition? That's from Stan W. I do not. I think Pete Carroll was the biggest addition, along with John Spytek. But I think another addition is Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly is a master of adapting his scheme to the talent that he has. You saw this with Josh McDaniels. You saw this with John Gruden. And you've seen it, last year with Getsy, a rigorous commitment to scheme over talent. I think Chip Kelly and Greg Olson are two tremendous additions to this team. Greg Olson is so underrated by Raider Nation because he's been here when they've had some tough lean times. Greg Olson is not a good coach. Greg Olson is a great coach. He is a great coach. If I bought an NFL team tomorrow, the first call I would make for my quarterback coach is Greg Olson. He is tremendous, and he's going to help Geno. Then you've got a savant offensive mind in Chip Kelly, who understands enough that I've got to make my system work for what I have with a head coach that knows how to set the steering. I think coaching is the story of the offseason for the Raiders. The coaching is so much better now. So much better. And I'll get into a lot more of that later. Thanks for joining me, everybody. God bless each and every one of you. I appreciate you joining us today. Have a great weekend.